like using the Staples Easy button. You push down and it takes care of everything from there. And that was our mantra from the beginning. How do we make it that simple that it's literally just a push of a button?
Welcome to Inside Startup Investing, the only podcast where you can invest in every guest. On this episode, I will be speaking with the president and CEO of Pirouette Pharma, Conor Cullinane. As a reminder, if you like what you hear on today's episode, you can invest in Pirouette Pharma on WeFunder, regardless of whether or not you are accredited with a minimum investment of $250 until March 27th, 2026. Pirouette Pharma is a Kingscrowd capital portfolio company, and I was excited to dive in to hear the progress he and the team have made. For those that don't know, Pirouette Pharma is an innovative medical device that takes the EpiPen from a large, unwieldy device that involves a rather violent stabbing motion and user error-prone nature into something akin to the Staples Easy button. One click, and that's it. For years, this team of industrial engineers, designers, and medical experts have pioneered a new pocket-sized device that will alter life for those that need an EpiPen, creating something that fits in your pocket so you actually carry it with you and can be deployed by literally anyone with the simple push of a button. It's pretty incredible technology. After a year or so since we last spoke, it was great to see that Conor and his team have progressed their path to commercialization, working hand in hand with the FDA to move approvals along while also preparing for the ability to manufacture these devices at scale. The team is making tremendous headway. For me, something that has always stuck out about Pirouette is that every time I speak with his investors or people that have attended one of Conor's talks, they immediately talk about how blown away they are by Conor himself. He has the intelligence, mindset, persistence, and level-headedness that I look for when wanting to back a founder. As always, this was an awesome conversation. So with that, let's get on to the show and welcome Conor. Conor, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Glad to be back.
So for those who missed our last episode with you a little over a year ago at least, just give us a little bit of background on yourself, who you are, and what Pirouette Medical is all about.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm Conor, one of the co-founders and CEO at Pirouette. A little bit on my background is originally an aeronautical and aerospace engineer, did some work for NASA developing spacesuits. My expertise really was in complex mechanical systems that are tightly coupled with the human body. So everything from power prostheses, spacesuits, to now auto-injectors. And that's really what Pirouette is focused on. Ultimately, I really think about our overall mission being the ability to take healthcare that is currently in the clinical setting and put it into the hands of patients. And we're starting by targeting injectable medications by making injections as easy as pushing a button. So we developed a little disc-shaped push-button delivery system for injectable medications to do just that.
You had a really successful raise on WeFunder a little over a year ago. I'd love to get the update from you. Where are you at? What have you accomplished since the last time we chatted?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. So, that round in general was it's such an amazing experience. And it really, as a bolt-on to sort of an even broader, larger round that included some notable VCs like Safar. And, it was really a catalyst for everything that we've been sort of thinking about over the last 12 months. And some of the things that we focused on were really refining our manufacturing processes, because at Pirouette, not only do we develop the product, but we also own final device manufacturing and testing. And so building out that infrastructure in-house has been really important. So sort of certifying our ISO Class 8 clean room, and going station by station through our production process and taking those stations to a semi-automated, which is a fairly complex phase of manufacturing complexity. Taking that to semi-automation and making sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed when it comes to being able to produce this device at the quality that is expected from not only the FDA, but really the end users and patients that we're building this technology for. So that's been a lot of fun. One of the other things that we've done, for as an example, is we've built out our team to add some really, I think, exciting and key executive hires. We added a vice president of commercialization to really start preparing our organization for that commercialization mindset. Just a few weeks ago, we actually promoted him to our chief commercial officer, which is really exciting based on how his performance already. We added a chief of staff. We added a vice president of quality. We added a vice president of manufacturing and supply chain, which is also really important as an organization that manufactures the end product as well. So kind of having some of these key executive hires on top of the funding that was available because of our last fundraise were sort of additive agents to that catapult that allowed us to continue to accelerate our overall progress, the milestones, and really progress towards our two major focuses going into 2026, which are continued progress towards regulatory approval and scaling our manufacturing even further to the next step, which would be fully automated manufacturing.
Diving in on regulatory approval, where are you in that process? And for those who don't play in this space every day, what does that process kind of look like from end to end?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll start with what the process looks like, and then I'll kind of give you an explanation of where we are in that pathway. Early communication with the FDA is important. So you can have various engagements with the FDA as you approach your overall approval, right? The end milestone is getting approval so that you can actually market the product. So to start kind of working backwards. Typical pathway for us for a combination product, which is a device plus a drug. When our device ships out of when our product ships out of our facility, it's a device combined with a drug. So the typical pathway is what's considered a 505(b)(2). It's basically a new drug application. And really the innovation is often for us on the device side, but as it's considered an NDA, prior to your submission of that NDA for approval, you'd have a pre-NDA meeting, and then you'd have various stages of engagement prior to that, one of which would be a Type C meeting. And that's where we are today. We had a Type C meeting with the FDA, specifically with their Office of Non-Prescription Products, which was really exciting because as an injectable combo product, that's not been done in terms of a direct to OTC approval, and it's really a testament to the technology that is so easy to use. Right, I said it at the beginning. Making injections is easy as pushing a button, and I think that resonates with the FDA, especially when you're talking about drug products that should be developed for community use, like naloxone for opioid overdose, and sort of our next phase on that pathway will be IND. IND essentially allows you to run studies in humans, and then onto a pre-NDA meeting, and then NDA submission. So it's definitely an exciting path. We've had a lot of really great engagement with the agency. We continue to build the data sets that the agency will be looking for upon final submission. And are very, very invigorated by the information that the FDA has been giving us.
When you get into the IND stage, how many people are you going to have to test this in, and what is it that they're looking for to say, okay, this is all right for use?
Yeah, so really the study is considered a pharmacokinetic study. So essentially we're looking at the uptake and availability of the drug in the bloodstream. And we're doing that in over a period of time, right? So not just at one time point, but over a period of time. So you get to see how quickly is that drug being adopted into the bloodstream, and then how quickly is its half-life and dissipating from the bloodstream. And so why the FDA really cares about that is because of what that means clinically, right? And so there are levels, as an example with naloxone, if you're delivering that drug product, that you need to meet in the body in order to overcome the overdose that's occurring. So what the FDA is really interested in seeing is how quickly can you get to that level where you're able to actually reduce abort an overdose, and then how efficacious is that long term really. And then you asked in terms of how many. We're looking at a study of probably around 30 individuals.
In terms of how much time that takes and the costs associated with it, I'm not sure people appreciate just how much these tests or trials can be.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a few $1 million, and you're talking, I would say 6 to 8 months of, planning, actually executing, and then post analysis, right, wrapping everything up. So, it's not a short period of time, and it's not inexpensive. These are rigorous studies that require quite a bit of love and care.
Once you get through that process, then the steps to get to commercialization, is it pretty much them, again, reviewing all of those documents that have gone through kind of the IND stuff, and then just kind of finalizing things on your end? Is there more things that have to be proven to them, and how much time could be associated with post kind of the trial period?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're doing in terms of the collecting of information and what I would call data that goes into those packages is happening simultaneously. So a lot of these things aren't necessarily linear or lined up or stacked on one another. So as an example, some of the things that the FDA cares about, right, are the drug, right? You can essentially think of our product as two different things: the drug and the device. On the drug side, it's really that pharmacokinetics. That's enabled by the delivery of the system. On the device side, at the top level, what the FDA is really looking at is reliability for successful activation. They're also looking at things like essential performance requirements, and the reliability associated with that data. So essential performance requirements can be anything from, let's say, your extended needle length to your delivered volume. In terms of budgeting additional time, really we're looking at the most efficient path forward, and that means doing a lot of these things simultaneously.
Something that a lot of biotech companies do, right, is they kind of get themselves into phase 1 or even phase 2 trials, and if things are reading out well, they essentially sell themselves to large biotech, because large biotech and large pharma companies are they're really good at commercialization and marketing and manufacturing all the things, right? Rather than actually see it through and be a standalone company and have to figure all of that out. When you look at yourself as a company, it sounds like you're investing in your manufacturing processes and wanting to figure that out. How do you think about just, licensing or selling off to a large pharma company versus taking this thing through and actually becoming the manufacturer and provider of the device directly?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think a lot of times that business model rings true is when it's really sort of drug only, and you're developing a drug, and it needs to be paired and it needs to be commercialized, and you don't want to build the infrastructure to go do that. I think we think about it in a little bit of a different way, because our base innovation is a platform that we see as ubiquitous across injectables in general. We're really excited about bringing forward products, to the market on our own. We're also looking at partnerships at the same time, where we're going to place APIs from a partner pharma in our device and work with them to commercialize those products. So for us, as you heard from the manufacturing infrastructure development, right, we are in this for the long haul, and that allows us to capitalize on the overall value that the device as a platform really delivers, and then the infrastructure associated with the manufacturing supports for that, such that we target not just sort of a single exit for one particular molecule that's giving a good endpoint on a clinical study, right? We look at different exits of different types across different markets. So in any one market, we have the ability to execute a licensing deal or sell that product in that particular space, through one of those partnering arrangements, or bringing our product on our own into that space. So we're very flexible based on the way we've built the company, and it gives us a lot of excitement in terms of how big this company can become based on sort of core technologies. And then we also look forward to new technologies, both injectable, building out sort of the next generation of, what we might call the iPhone 1.
Hmm.
And then also thinking about other, enabling technologies that can help bring other types of clinical care out of the clinic and into the hands of patients.
From where you are today, what year is it where you see commercialization, where you could start generating revenue? Where do you see that being? And then to go one step further on that, when does that ramp really start to occur where you see pretty significant adoption? Is this going to be a hard thing to get doctors to change what they're prescribing today and providing to their clients? Or do you see this as a fairly rapid, adoption once you get it in market?
Yeah, I see it as a fairly rapid adoption once it hits the market. I think, you know, we see a snowball effect coming down the pipeline as well in terms of the competitive advantage that our product can deliver to injectable medications. And so, seeing those pharma partners start knocking on the door as they see that competitive advantage out in the marketplace and wanting to be able to pair their, drug, which is often their baby, with that competitive advantage delivery system for a patient-led or end-user-led differentiation. Um, so that's really exciting in terms of that snowball and rapid adoption. I think in terms of revenue, we're projecting at this point, the ability to capture recurring revenue in 2027. So really not far away. And some of these business development or partnership opportunities and these strategic opportunities for APIs being placed into our device would actually be able to bring revenue even pre-FDA approval, likely this year.
The current product that's on the market, the EpiPen, is something that a lot of people know. I'm not exactly sure what the naloxone treatment looks like, but I imagine it's something similar. Um, when you talk to patients, or prospective patients who could utilize this, what is their feeling about what makes this better to what currently exists in the market?
Yeah, I think one word I hear a lot is intimidation. Um, with the existing devices to deliver injectable medications, there's just this immense intimidation factor that often leads to individuals who will not even attempt injections. That leads to patients who are returning to the clinical setting more than they need to, right? We're looking at options that are, let's say, a post chemotherapy injection where patients typically are returning to the hospital to receive that injection, or fertility injections where you have individuals that really are too afraid to do it at home and will need the support of a nurse, and so they have to go to the clinic to get that help. Um, we really start with that alleviation of the overall anxiety and fear and intimidation. Um, and so, one another thing that we've heard a lot is it's, kind of an unassuming shape, right? It doesn't drive that overall gut reaction of, whoa, you're coming at me with a big needle. And then the overall process in terms of actually performing an injection, it's simply like using the Staples Easy button. You push down and it takes care of everything from there. And that was our mantra from the beginning. How do we make it that simple that it's literally just a push of a button?
Hmm. When you look at the market landscape today, are there any competitors even near to what you're doing yet? How far ahead do you think you kind of are?
I think we're pretty far out in front. And I think that our sort of IP landscape has helped us to understand that as well. We have a significant portfolio that's built a fortress around the device, the internal mechanisms that have allowed us to achieve this form factor that gives such a benefit to the end user. We've also recently conducted a full freedom to operate search, which really targets that question specifically. And that has been fantastic to see that there are no patents that would block our ability to market. And then on top of that as well, layering on the manufacturing capability and owning the IP for the manufacturing processes gives another layer of protection over the technology as well.
In terms of manufacturing, if you're only a year out from really being able to lean in and start to supply this to the market in a commercial way. If that's the case, you know, you don't want manufacturing to be the limiting factor. Do you have to build a factory? Is a factory or production facility you already have pretty good to be able to ramp into hundreds of thousands of uses? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the facility that we've built out already in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, is the facility that we'll take through our initial commercialization. And right now, the ramp we're going through over the next, let's call it 12 months, is to build out that high throughput manufacturing capability on the existing or in the existing facility. So the exciting thing about that is, you mentioned hundreds of thousands of devices. Like this capability will be in the millions. So it's going to be really exciting, very complex, automated equipment, and it's going to be exciting to have that capability at hand because, it's a partnership enabling item as well, right? It's one thing if we can offer a competitive advantage, but we could only make one of these things a year. It's a different, discussion altogether if we can offer that competitive advantage and also meet the demand that they have and will have with our device in the market in terms of the ability to produce those units. So that's an exciting item that we're working on now and will be part of our focus over the next year.
When you think about the next 2 to 3 years, based on getting through approvals by the FDA, getting to commercialization, it sounds like the facility you're setting up is in a pretty good place to be able to support commercialization to a fairly good extent. When you think about the capital requirements your business will require, do you have a scope of what that looks like? Is it tens of millions of dollars, or are we talking about singular millions to get you where you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, in the long term, right, pharma and pharma manufacturing is not inexpensive. So, yeah, we're talking tens of millions to be able to build out those capabilities for sure.
With this current raise that you're entering, what are the use of funds? Obviously, it sounds like some is going towards manufacturing, but what are the use of the funds, and where do you hope it gets you?
Yeah, major use of funds are going to be continued progress towards regulatory approval, and then number two, the automated scaled manufacturing. And in terms of what we really want to get to with that, right, is being able to close on some of these partnership opportunities that we're really interested in with some very exciting drug products and being able to pair those with our device. And being able to go through, as we talked about, some of the clinical work for some of the drugs that we have in our pipeline, and be at a position a year from now where we can't run the manufacturing line fast enough.
You've been at this for a while. Something more and more as I spend more time talking to founders, it's kind of hit me that a measure of resiliency is asking folks kind of what their why is, right? What gets you up every day? Why do you do this day in and day out? It's hard. It's not easy to do things in your sector. What is your why? Why are you building Pirouette Medical?
Yeah. I think first, I love difficult engineering problems. I was an engineer, originally and by training, and, I love solving a good problem. There's definitely a good problem here to solve. I also love manufacturing. I really love having the ability to combine both of those things, really innovating on product development and then building out manufacturing for that innovative product. So I'm definitely in a sweet spot there. But I always tell people, right, like coming from the aerospace world, coming from engineering in general, right, it could have been Pirouette Aerospace or Pirouette Defense or Pirouette anything. But the reason we're operating in life sciences and healthcare is because there's an added benefit there. There's an added why when that innovative product is not just a commodity that someone's buying to put it on their shelf because it looks cool, or a fidget spinner, right? Like this is something that will go out into the world and save a life. And I think honestly that's one of the things that I'm most looking forward to is you get through the FDA approval, you get products on the market, and hearing that first story of, a patient whose life was just tremendously changed by a product that we developed for that reason is something that continues to help me move forward in that marathon mentality versus burning out in a sprint. Right, we're after that long-term goal of patient satisfaction, patient lives saved, and just transforming their lives in a way that really today it's tough for patients who are administering injections, let's say daily or weekly or monthly. It's not something they look forward to. It's not something that they're having a good experience with, and we really want to change that for them. And we think that'll really help them with a lot of other things in their life. So for me, that's the big thing. I get to do what I love, but I get to do that in a way that's gonna, as we say, change the world.
I want to give you the last word here for those investors who are on the line. What do you want them to know?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I want investors, and potential investors to know is that ultimately it's a fantastic product. It's a fantastic team. It is a vision that is meaningful to so many people. It's going to be really important for us to execute on that vision to deliver something that the world needs. And I would love for anyone who's interested in that to become part of that change that the world needs. And whether it's a small check or a big check, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is you come along with Pirouette as part of the journey.
If you like what you heard on the show today, you can invest $250 or more on WeFunder until March 27th, 2026. And of course, if you want to learn more about why Pirouette Pharma scored a 3.8 out of 5 on the Kingscrowd proprietary rating scale, go to kingscrowd.com and search Pirouette Pharma. And as always, if you like what you heard on the show today, please like, subscribe, and share our podcast wherever you listen so more investors like you can find us. Thanks for tuning in, and happy investing.